What's going on, everybody? Appreciate you guys tuning in to the Exhibit 1 podcast. This is episode 1. I'm your host, Mike Golab. So this is a podcast that's going to be talking about a lot of different topics that I believe have an impact in people's lives in many different ways, such as mental health, nutrition, working out. If you're, I'm a Christian, so I like talking about my relationship with God and how it impacts my life and other people's lives. Business opportunities, career goals, current events. It's just a podcast where we can just discuss not just one particular niche, but a lot of things that are going on today. My goal is, as a podcast host, is to create awareness for many things that are happening today. And I'm not an expert. I'm not a doctor or a licensed practitioner or a nutritionist or a therapist, but my goal is just to create awareness, as I mentioned, and I have my own experiences in life, as I'm sure you all do as well, and it's good to talk about things to kind of, just like I said, just get the conversation going. So from this point on, throughout this series, I'm just going to be stating certain topics and bringing up information about it, my experiences with them, and show you guys where you can find the information. Eventually, over time, we'll be able to add guests to the show. Once this show kind of picks up more viewerships as we go along, we can get guests on the show that will answer some of the questions that I may have, as well as some of the questions you might be asking. Today's topic is going to be covering something I think that everybody at this point in their life, if you're my age, I'm 37, maybe you're younger or older, but I think at some point in your life you may experience what people may call burnout. What is burnout? Burnout is, well, you hear people say the expression, I feel a little burnout today, I could use a day off. I could go for a vacation right now. Burnout is it's like mental exhaustion, or in worst cases, physical exhaustion. And it's not uncommon to be burnout. If you work a lot, if you have multiple jobs, or maybe you're a parent who has, multiple kids, or even just one kid, one child can be difficult at times to manage, let alone if you have multiple. Say, one of the kids have soccer practice, and the next one has piano lessons or something, and then you got to take the other one to a doctor's appointment, or you got to, go run errands with the other one. You get the point. It's just exhaustion from the day-to-day grind, whether it's working or stuff at home. It's just you're on the go a lot. And so it's very normal to feel a little bit fatigued and burnout. Burnout's not something that usually happens instantly, Being tired one day is one thing. It's not necessarily burnout. Burnout is something that will gradually come upon you, you noticed it for the last week or so, you've been a little more tired, maybe a little more stressed out, irritable, you're not as motivated. That happens in the early stages. But the problem is a lot of people don't notice that they're burnt out until they get into the later stages, where they might feel a little bit depressed, or they're not getting good sleep, their weight gain or weight loss, depending on your eating habits, or your activity level. I don't know. It varies upon people and their cases. But it's the reason why it's so hard for people to pick up on burnout, especially at an early stage, is, well, number one is the knowledge of it. You'd be surprised how a lot of people don't know that burnout is a real thing. We know we all feel tired and stressed out at times. That's part of life. But it's the chronic stress and chronic fatigue that will go on. And if you don't identify it and treat it, it just gets worse. It doesn't get better over time. It just gets worse. Some of the common symptoms, you're going to get fatigue's one of them, or troubles having quality sleep. There's a difference between good sleep and bad sleep, and we'll talk about that here in a second. Headaches, mood swings. I mean, those are just some of the common symptoms of burnout. And I think it's very important, like I said, to identify those as soon as possible so you can, well, feel better. Everyone wants to feel better, right? No one wants to feel like crap. No one wants to feel tired or stressed out. So, fortunately, there are lots of ways to conquer it and hopefully prevent it from happening again. But before I get into that, I want to explain my experience of burnout, how I learned what it was. I remember a few years ago working second shifts Monday through Friday, occasionally Saturdays and Sundays if they're asking me to work overtime. Most of the time I took them. And over time, over the course of months and even some years, I started getting, a little bit, I don't say bored with the job, but I guess we'll say that. I get a little bored with the job. I was lacking fulfillment, and that's because part of my journey was figuring out who I was as a person and what my giftings were. And it's frustrating when you're working a job that you don't necessarily like and you want to be doing something else. So that was part of my burnout. And the routine of working the same schedule every day, it was very monotonous for me. But yeah, it was just gradual, start out me getting tired from work, and I come home and I'm just, I had a long day, I was stressed out, just can't wait to get to the house, and I would drink my beer, and I would watch TV, and I eat junk food towards late at night, because I was getting home at about 1 o'clock in the morning, so I would stay up a few hours afterwards, so I was sleeping, I would go to bed at about 4 o'clock, sometimes 5 a.m., which means I'm not getting up bright and early, because sometimes I was staying up till the birds was chirping. So I would usually sleep until 12, 1 o'clock. Now, think about this for a moment. If I'm going to bed at 5 o'clock a.m., waking up at 12, 1 o'clock, my work shift will start at 3 o'clock. I got about 2 hours to do whatever I need to do. And it's not much time at all in the day, 2 hours. And so I was constantly feeling rushed to get up in the morning just to go. If I wanted to go to the gym, I wanted to work out. I love working out. I think it's great for you, for your mental and physical health. But I didn't have time to go to the gym. At least I said I didn't have time to, or I didn't have time to, meal prep, make a healthy meal. At least I thought that I didn't have time. I would feel like I'm waking up, trying to scramble to do a couple of things, go to work all day long, all night long, get home to sit in front of a cube, drink my beer, eat food, junk food usually, especially if you're after drinking alcohol or late at night, you're eating junk food most of the time, and you go to bed real late. And so it just repeats this pattern over and over and over and over. And so, like most people, when you work on Monday to Friday, if you have the weekend off, you're looking forward to that Friday, whatever time you get off of work. It's the weekend now. I'm going to live my best life here for the next 2 days. And then the reality comes is that Monday shows back up. You have to go back and repeat the same thing over again. And so for me, it was just really mentally draining me a little bit. I was doing that for so long just so I can pay my bills like any responsible adult. You got responsibilities, especially if you got a family, you got kids or a spouse, you gotta support them. And so I was just working to fulfill my obligation as an adult to be able to provide for myself. But I was missing, the fulfillment of my life, pursuing other things. So I was at a point where I was also trying to figure out what my calling was. And I was trying out different things. I was trying out photography, or I got into, cooking, and I was trying to almost start a couple different businesses, even if they weren't like great ideas. It was just I was in the motion of trying to figure out who I am. And in some degrees today, I still do that. I still try to learn more about myself each day and try to figure out more about my calling in life. But you can imagine how stressful it is of working a job that I didn't necessarily hate the job, but I knew that it wasn't something for me long term. In my early 30s at the time, did not want to do that. Part of that was due to becoming a Christian and learning more about the gifts that I potentially have and that I could do more than what I was at. Now, I'm not saying that if you work at a 9-to-5 job or whether that's a restaurant, or retail, or a manufacturing company, or we are a library, whatever it is. I'm not saying if you work those jobs that you're not necessarily in your calling or that you're failing at all. I just personally knew that I should be doing something else. So for me, I was very frustrated with the process, the fact that it was taking longer than I was hoping to. I was hoping to just go find a few things and just move on, go about my business, but it didn't work that way. I just remember waking up one morning, sitting up on the edge of my bed, contemplating about not my work, but my life. Like, who am I as a person? What am I doing with myself? And why am I still waking up doing the same job? And I felt like I was in prison to this job. Now, technically, you don't have to work a job. You can leave your job anytime you want. You're not unless you're contracted. If you have a contract, that's different. I guess you're contracted, and then you breaching contract might be different legal stuff, like whatever goes on. But in my case, and like with most employers, employer relationships, they can end at any time. They can fire you anytime. You can leave any time. And so I knew that I can just leave wherever I want. I didn't have to stay. And I remember every day I kept feeling like I should just walk out of my job, could quit anytime, and I just couldn't do it. I don't know. I felt like I was afraid of losing everything that I worked for. I was homeless prior to working at that particular job. I won't dive into all that, but I was homeless at one point, and I remember, having to bounce around couch to couch. If a friend let me stay or a relative let me stay for a little bit, I was very grateful to have that. So when I got that job, I felt like I was coming up a little bit. I was doing better for myself. But then later realized that wasn't something I wanted to do full time, but I was afraid of walking away from a job. And I know there's a lot of people today who are afraid of the same thing. They're afraid of walking away from their current position because they feel like they're going to fail. They feel like that they're going to, lose everything. Maybe it's a house or, it could be a material thing or you're afraid of, not being able to provide for your family. And those are all realistic concerns because those are things that could potentially happen. That was my experience with burnout at the time. And I thought maybe quitting my job and just doing my own thing would help that. And in some degree it did. It gave me temporary relief because, again, I was doing something new and exciting. I was a little change of pace, a very much change of pace in what I was doing. But here's the thing. My burnout didn't go away. Because I still had unbalance in my life. I wasn't fulfilling the things that also matter more than just working. Work's important, especially if you need an income because nothing's free. Food's not free. Your house over your head's not. The roof over your head's not free. The car you drive's not free. The clothes that you're wearing is not free. So living is not free. Unless someone's doing it for you, it may be free for you, but someone's paying for it. Somebody's paying for it. That's just the reality of things. So you have to provide for yourself. You also have human needs. You do have to give yourself time to recover from a long week or in some cases a long year. If you don't have days off, I know people who don't ever take days off. Not giving yourself that time to recover and recharge is what brings you down the rabbit hole of burnout. The average person needs about 7 to 8 hours of sleep as an adult. If you're an adult, if you're in your 20s and 30s, that's what you roughly need. I can tell you, most people are not getting 7 to 8 hours of sleep. I'm telling you, if you're a hard worker and especially if you got multiple jobs, or you just got a family to look after, you're not on average, you're not getting 7 to 8 hours of sleep. You might get maybe one night you get 8, and then the next night you get 4 or 5. Especially if you're somebody who has a job and you are pursuing other endeavors, other career opportunities, which is what I was doing. I most definitely was not getting 8 hours of sleep for the longest time, because I was working a full-time job, or I might have a side job next to it to help pay some extra bills or extra income put aside. And then I was also trying to start my own business or do other projects. So I didn't have time to sleep 7 to 8 hours. Now, depending on your health and your age, you can bypass some of that for a little bit. But it does add up over time. And for me, I needed 7 hours of sleep at least. And so there was a lot of days where I was getting 4 hours of sleep, 2 hours of sleep, 5 hours of sleep. I pulled some all-nighters. Those days I didn't get sleep at all. And I remember feeling awful just after a day or two of doing that, but I just kept pushing through because I knew that I had to stay busy. I had to stay committed. And every once in a while, I'll have a day where I'll crash for like 8, 9 hours. And you could tell, like, I needed to sleep because even when I woke up, I felt like I slept the entire night. If that night lasted, like, it felt like 5-10 minutes only went by. And I had the drool sleep and everything in my pillow. Not to be gross, but I was exhausted. But I wasn't getting good sleep quality regularly. That heavy drool sleep happened once, maybe every few weeks. So a lot of days I was just not getting good sleep. So that weighs on you, on your health, mentally and physically. Very big, very, very big cause of burnout. And we'll get into sleep. Like I mentioned, we'll get into that. That's going to be something we talk about a lot throughout the series, because I've studied a lot about sleep. Again, I'm not a sleep expert, but I've had my own issues with sleep. And whenever I was going through something in my body, if I felt sick or I felt off, I would, seek a doctor's approval on something. I would ask, I would get a medical attention somewhere, see a doctor or a specialist on something if it's really severe. But I would do my own research afterwards. I would ask a lot of questions and take notes. And remember, I felt this way because of this or because of that. So sleep was one of the things that I studied a lot on, because I was trying to figure out how to get better sleep on a more regular basis. So having good quality sleep is important. If you don't have that, you can get burnt out. But you could also have issues, if it's stress from like day-to-day stuff. It could be from your finances. Maybe you have relationship issues. Maybe your job itself could be stressing you out. Maybe bosses or the type of work you're doing. Maybe it's a little stressful. And of course, you got, life, your circumstances, the situation you're going through in life. These are all things that, especially if it's happening in a long run, it will cause, more severe burnout. Most people feel it acute, and if it doesn't, if you don't recognize it and treat it early, it can turn into a more severe burnout, and that's never good for anybody. Burnout, even in an acute level, is never good. But when you get to more of a severe level, that's when it gets hard to try to peel back the onions a little bit. Research is showing that we as a people, society, are experiencing more burnout cases than ever before. And a lot of that can be due to the pandemic that we just went through. And some people will say we're still kind of going through some of it. But the pandemic really did a number on people in 2020 for sure. And even 2021. And I don't need to explain why. I'm sure everybody knows what happened, unless you're, living under a rock the whole time, and you missed out on a lot of excitement there. By excitement, I mean drama. But so the pandemic caused a lot of people to feel stress and burnout. Obviously the inflation has been something that, especially this past year, people have talked a lot about. Inflation's always been around. It's not like it's just a new thing that just started last year and this year. It's always been around. But it's been a growing concern, and I won't get into all that today. That would be more stuff that we talk about potentially later on in the series. But inflation, cost of living goes up. That's very stressful, and especially if the wage isn't going up as fast as the inflation is. Like, inflation is here, here's inflation going up, and here's the wage kind of moving up a little bit slowly, but it never quite catches up with the inflation. So I'm sure we'll have someone on the show that can kind of give us more insight to the economical side of things. But that has a lot to do with people being more burnout than before. Also, like watching a lot of news on TV. I'm not saying you can't watch the news. It's good to be informed of what's going on today, absolutely. But if you're somebody who turns on the news, whatever station you're going to put it on, and you just repeat that on replay all day long, you're just watching the news. And as we know, there's a lot of things that are very stressful in this world. Most of the stuff that a lot of us are not aware of. I'm just going to be honest. But, it's not really good to hear a lot of negative news and negative stuff. And, it's like this doom and gloom stuff about to happen and war. Like, no one wants to hear that. It's reality of things are going. There's a lot of things that are just a lot of bad things happening. But hearing it all day long, all the time, does put you in a state of panic and a state of survivor mode, and it's all doom and gloom. And then, well, where is all that coming from? A lot of times, social media. I'm not saying social media is bad and that you shouldn't use it. I'm saying that most people are not using it the right way, because there's a way you can use it as a consumer, or you can use it as somebody who is a producer. You're either consumer or producer. And social media loves producers because they're putting content on their sites. And if they didn't have people producing content, you wouldn't have anything to watch or to look at, essentially. Consumers are the ones that will be scrolling through the feed, looking through. They're like, oh, what's on here? Let me go ahead and pull up this. Okay, I'm reading this and reading this and reading this and reading this and reading this, watching this and seeing that and all. And okay, I saw that too. Though, again, that's your thing, and I'm not knocking you for it. It's there for a reason. The reason why social media isn't always the greatest thing is because there's a lot of, well, I'm sure you guessed, a lot of misinformation being put on there to begin with. A lot of people or just the unrealistic views of life at times of people or expectations of people. It's just a place. I think that if you spend a lot of time on social media, you're going to feel drained. Your bandwidth is going to be shot. By bandwidth, I mean your capability to comprehend or to take in more information. You can only take in so much information on a day-to-day basis. The average person, I'm going to guess, spends roughly 3 to 5 hours a day on social media. Not a week, a day. 3 to 5 hours. That's 3 to 5 hours sitting here scrolling through your phone. I mean, you can't do very much for yourself if you have a phone in your hand. But 3 to 5 hours on social media, that kills your productivity in a lot of other areas in your life. Unless that's what you do. If you work with social media, if that's your job, if that's your business, then obviously that's a whole different discussion. You're producing, but you're just consuming it. You're just looking through stuff, scrolling through, and then trying to comment on this and argue with this person on this topic, whatever. And it's not really producing anything. So you're taking all this information, and a lot of it's not good. It stresses you out. It gets you depressed. It gets you anxious. It gets you burnout. So according to the American Psychological Association, there's a research that they did, and according to them in the research, roughly 77% of the people currently working are experiencing some form of burnout. That's basically the overwhelming majority of people today are experiencing some level of burnout. Now, it didn't say how much were acute or how much of those were severe. It just said, in a nutshell, most people are currently experiencing some kind of burnout. It's not most people have experienced it. It's most people are currently experiencing it. That's a problem. I mean, And I think it's due to a lot of people not being educated on it, and the symptoms that they might be experiencing. They might think it's something else that's causing it, and that's the thing that does make it challenging, because if someone says they got a headache, you know how many causes for headache there are. You can Google and say, what's the cause for headache, and there would be a whole bunch of stuff from minor to like you got brain cancer or something, or it could be, oh, well, this person, it could just be the sinuses. It could be, maybe you're tired or stressed out. So some of these symptoms that people are receiving due to burnout can be also linked to other things. It could be linked to lack of sleep. Maybe you are really tired. Maybe you legitimately are just not sleeping very much. Could be your diet. Could be maybe you have an allergic reaction to something. Maybe seasonal allergies. Dehydration. So there's a number of things that can lead to having that one symptom. So having these symptoms, it's a vitamin nutrition deficiency. So that's very possible. So it's hard for people to sometimes to identify burnout because they don't know that's what their job's causing it, or their relationship at home may be causing it. And oftentimes it gets left undiagnosed until they have something really bad happens where, they end up in the hospital because of they're stressed out. They had a mental breakdown or something happened. People oftentimes don't realize how bad they're severely burned out until they hit rock bottom. And it's a shame. There's definitely ways, though, you can treat it and be more proactive about it later on and not wait till it gets bad again. One of the ways you can start off by, well, number one, I think that if you believe you do have a especially a severe case of burnout, or even if it is acute, I encourage people to go see a therapist or talk to someone who's a specialist who knows that kind of stuff, who can help you out, because it's not a joke. It's not something you want to just put off lightly, because it does get worse and worse and worse, and especially if you leave it. If you don't do anything about it, it could get worse. Therapy I recommend that, especially as soon as possible, as soon as you can, because you want to be able to figure out what's causing it. What's the root of it? You can put a Band-Aid on something all you want, but you got to be able to get to the root of the situation, or it's never going to develop, right? It's like when you're cutting grass, cutting weeds in the yard. You have a weed whacker. You can go ahead and just take off the weeds from the surface. It looks nice on the surface now, doesn't it? It looks nice. You got it all cut down. But here's the problem, though. You didn't get to the root. So now the weed is going to go right up. There you go. Right back up. You're going to chop it again. It's going to keep coming back up because you didn't get it from the root. Remove it. All right. I'm not having gardening lessons here or landscape lessons, but you get the point I'm getting at. Figure out the root of it. Pull that sucker out. The next thing alongside of getting help with therapy is try working out. If you're not doing it already. If you already are, then obviously keep doing it in a healthy manner. You don't have to go to the gym 7 days a week and do 2-day workouts or 3 or 4 day workouts. You can just work out 30 minutes at minimum. Alongside of working out on a more routine basis is eating healthy. I heard a saying one time from a documentary. I can't remember what it was, where it was from, but someone said, eat food like it's medicine, or you're going to eat medicine like it's food. I don't know about you, but I don't want to eat medicine. So I better eat food, eat healthy food. But basically what that means is you give yourself what your body needs. All the electrolytes, the micro and macronutrients, all those, and drink plenty of water. Keep your hydration up. Okay, those are all things we all know. We all know we're supposed to do that. We all know we're supposed to eat healthy. I know we're supposed to eat healthy, go to the gym, yada yada. We all know that, but yet there's so many people still not doing it. Right? It's just because it's a habit thing. It's a habit. So get in the habit of going to the gym and eating healthy. Trust me, I from my experience, it does make a difference. I'm not saying, that eating healthy alone will change everything, but it's definitely a big part of it. You eat healthier, you're going to feel healthier gradually. There's plenty of people you can reach out to help for. I would definitely recommend speaking to a nutritionist. they'll put you on a nutritional plan that's based on, it can be based on your blood type, based on if you have diabetes, based on if you have any kind of health issues, what your weight goals are, those are the things they do. So talk to a nutritionist, get yourself on a healthy diet plan. Getting regular sleep. It allows you to, again, recharge and recover. I mentioned that earlier in this episode. And you'd be surprised what it does to you by getting good sleep. Now, good sleep and bad sleep is a difference. If you're somebody who drinks alcohol, no judging, but if you drink alcohol, especially in the evening, the nightcap they call it, even one glass of beer or scotch, whatever it is, one glass can disrupt your sleep pattern. The REM, there's 4 stages in sleep. You got the stage 1, 2, and 3, and then the REM, that's where the rapid eye movement. If you drink alcohol, it disrupts that. Now, some people will say, well, I sleep fine. I go right to bed after I have a glass or two. Yeah, you can fall asleep because it's alcohol. In this case, now it's going to be, you're treating it more like a sedation because it's supposed to take the edge off, relax you, and it gives you a false sense of sleep because you might fall asleep. Great. But you would notice that some people will feel groggy afterwards. They have a hard time waking up in the morning. You might have slept, but you didn't really get the good sleep. If you're someone who drinks alcohol regularly at nighttime, try it one night. I'm not saying you have to quit drinking. I mean, alcohol is not good for you. It's not good for you. I drink beer once in a while, I'll be honest. Instead of drinking right before bedtime, if you're going to have that glass of alcohol, whatever you're drinking, try doing it either early in the daytime or not. Wow. I'm not promoting daytime drinking here. I'm not promoting any drinking. I'm just saying if you're going to do it, prefer to do it hours before bedtime. So it allows your body to metabolize that and allow it, in other words, get it out of your system. And especially helps if you drink in moderation. Don't go drinking, 7 or 8 drinks. You have about 1 or maybe 2 at the most. Earlier than later, you're better off. You'll get better sleep. And it helps if you decide to not drink at all that night. The nights I don't drink, which I've gotten better over the past year or two of not drinking as much, I do sleep better when I either A, don't drink at all, or if I do drink, I keep it to a very, very minimum. Earlier, like say, instead of drinking at 10 o'clock at night, I might have a drink or two at 5 o'clock. It doesn't have to necessarily be alcohol that affects your sleep. It could just be your sleep schedule. If you're all over the place, your circadian rhythm is not in routine. Otherwise, that's your sleep rhythm, your sleep schedule, the internal clock. Your body says, hey, it's time to wake up, it's time to go to bed, right? Naturally, we're meant to sleep at nighttime and be up at daytime. However, in this society, a lot of workers, a lot of people in general don't do it like that. There are people who work graveyard shifts. And I, who worked third shift for a brief part of my life, I don't like third at all because I do very well. I do better sleeping at nighttime as opposed to daytime. But if you're sleeping different hours of the day, every day, it's hard for your body to adapt. It's hard to get the circadian rhythms to be in tune. It's a routine thing. So if you're going to bed at one night at 10 o'clock, and then the next day you go to bed at 1 in the morning, and then you go to bed at 9:30 and 12 o'clock, you get the point. Same thing goes if you wake up in the morning. If you wake up different times because you go to bed different times, you're not gonna feel very well. You're gonna feel like you didn't get good sleep because it does take your body time to adjust your sleep schedule. So one recommendation I would suggest: going to bed at the same time, whatever that is. Pick a time and stick with it. Let's say it is 10 o'clock at night. Regardless of what your situation is, bearing there's no emergency or anything that's like a one-time thing that happened, a routine, average. But yeah, so go to bed at a normal time, wake up. It might take a few days to get adjusted, but once you do it, you should eventually get better. You should be able to get better sleep. You'll feel better, and that's assuming you're doing the reducing the alcohol consumption, or at least not have it so close to bedtime. If you still have problems sleeping after that and you feel like it's not getting better, then I would recommend speaking to a sleep therapist or somebody. Talk to your doctor, get a sleep study, because obviously something else might be going on. The last thing I would recommend is finding hobbies. If you don't have one, find a hobby that you can enjoy doing. I don't know, if you like to paint, or you can, maybe you like to build stuff, whatever it is. If you want to play video games, I like the game. I'm a gamer. I don't play as much because I don't have time to like I once did, but I still get on video games once in a while. My son and I will definitely, when we're hanging out and stuff, we'll do that. Have some hobbies. Have something you enjoy doing, especially if you have a spouse or if you have kids. Have family time. That's important. Do a game night or something. Like, it doesn't have to be video games. It can be board games, or go outside, go swimming, go ride a bike. Something that takes you away from all this, adult life, productivity, the hustle grind we always talk about. It's, we all got to have our own level of that in some degree, but you got to have your time for yourself, nurture yourself, essentially. So I know there's more to that list potentially. We could probably add more things to help cure and prevent burnout, but those are just some of the common things that I think at least a good starting point. Good habits take time. Just like it took time to develop bad habits, it takes time to build good habits. And one good habit leads to one other good habit. Look, I understand one of these things, one particular thing isn't going to necessarily cure all your burnout. But accumulating these routines and good habits I believe will slowly help you recover from it. But I would say get all the help you possibly can and start making healthy choices in your life. That's really the way to go. Is you want to be healthier. You want to feel better. You want to be healthier. You got to start making healthier choices. That pretty much covers this episode of Burnout. Hopefully you guys got something from this. You'll learn from this. I don't know whether maybe you're feeling burnout yourself and you we're looking for some answers or some advice at least. I'm not an expert. I'm not a doctor. I don't have a license. I'm not certification. Although I have thought about going and taking some certification classes on some of the stuff that I talk about because I do want to know more. These are some stuff that I learned from my experience of burnout, and I'm just here to shed a light on a situation, on a topic that affects a lot of people. If not, maybe everybody in some degree in their life has some burnout. Or if you haven't experienced it, and maybe you want to learn more about it so you don't have burnout, that's always great. Being proactive is a lot of times better than being reactive. So, but I hope you guys find this podcast episode very helpful. We're going to post these out every Monday. And I hope that you guys return and come back and let everybody know about this podcast. So, once again, my name is Mike Golab. This is Xhibit Podcast. Until then, stay tuned, stay blessed.